Pong is a simple game where each player controls a paddle and they must move their paddle to deflect a ball back at their opponent. The game's simplicity makes it the perfect candidate for replicating with Redstone. In fact, people were making Pong games all the way back when Redstone was first added. But I wanted to see if I could make the smallest Pong in Minecraft. The current smallest, built by Yellow Bunny, is 4 blocks wide, with each pixel taking up a 6x3 area for an impressive 72 blocks per pixel. So that is the area I attempted to beat, and after a lot of work, I ended up achieving it. So here is the journey of how I got there. I hope you enjoy. With a project like this, it's best to break it down into its individual components. So for my first step, I decided to only focus on creating a simple bouncing ball. My first idea was to store the X and Y coordinates of the ball separately. I could modify the values of each coordinate to move the ball, then I could draw the ball where the coordinates intersect. This approach works, and it's probably the best way to program an actual game of Pong, but I thought of another way that was much better suited for Redstone. The idea is that since we're only working with 90-degree angles for our screen, the ball can only travel in 4 different directions. So we can create 4 separate layers where each layer is just a bunch of redstone lines heading in that direction. So to simulate the ball traveling downwards and to the left, we can simply send a redstone signal down one of the redstone lines that points down and to the left. I should also mention that while I came up with this idea of using 4 layers on my own, I wasn't the first to come up with it. In fact, Crafty Masterman used the same concept in his Redstone Pong. My first implementation of this idea was a little big, but it proved the concept worked, and over the next few days, I attempted to compact the design with each iteration being smaller than the last. Eventually, I got to this. It may be difficult to see the redstone lines, but if I update this observer, we can see the redstone signal travel down and to the left, which is exactly what we want. And the nice thing about this design is that I can easily modify it to go in any of 4 directions by simply changing the directions of the observers. So I created 4 separate layers for the design and added a lamp display in front. So now I had the ability to send the ball in any direction along the screen. But what happens when it reaches the edge? Well, here's where the beauty of this design comes in. If the ball is traveling down and to the left, we want it to bounce off the edge and travel up and to the left. So we can connect the layer that goes down and left to the layer that goes up and left like this. Now, if we update this observer, the ball will travel down, bounce off the edge, and start traveling up and to the left. And that's all the circuitry needed for the bouncing ball. Next, I needed a way to detect if the ball has hit the paddle. To do this, I used this circuit. Here, the signal will only pass through to the next layer if the pistons are extended. So I can go ahead and activate these pistons, and if the ball hits the area, it will bounce off. But if the ball misses, then it looks like it travels off the screen. Finally, it's time for the paddles themselves. There are a couple of ways you could go about making these, but the way I decided to approach it was to use what's called a bidirectional shift register. The concept is, you have a series of bits, and you have the ability to move them in either direction. In the case of our game Pong, we'll have a single string of on bits representing the paddle. And by shifting the data, we can move the paddle up or down. My first design for the shift register used a simple repeater lock to store each bit of data. Each bit has a redstone line connecting it to the bit directly above it and below it. I can control the direction by locking one of these lines, and I can quickly unlock the repeaters to send the data in that direction. This design worked, but it was a bit on the chunky side, and I needed my design to be no more than 5 blocks in width. After a bit of thinking, here's the idea I came up with. Take a look at this paddle. To move the paddle up, we can move every single bit up by 1, or we can do this instead. We can take an XOR output from each pair of adjacent bits. An XOR gate will only give an output if only one of the input bits is on. After doing this, we get this output. Now, we can toggle the bits where the XOR gate is true, and the result will be the data we started with shifted up by 1. If we instead want to shift the data down, we can just move the XOR outputs down by 1 and toggle those bits. And the cool thing is, this works with any configuration of bits. Using this concept, I created this 4-block wide bidirectional shift register. Here, I'm using copper bulbs to store the data instead of repeater locks, since they can be more easily toggled. So now, I can input some data for our paddle, and I can press this to move the paddle up, and this to move it down. So yeah, all that was left to do was to connect all the components together, and the build was complete. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button, as it would really help this video out, and subscribe to see more content like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!